The alarm bells rang through the great hall of Nexus Prime, like the screams of dying worlds. Ambassador Quan Ho sat in his corner seat and watched the panic spread across the faces of the Galactic Council members. Red lights flashed on every screen, and holographic displays showed the same terrible news over and over again. The Vexhai Empire had taken another system. Council Prime Veltaran stood at the center of the circular chamber, with his 6 arms shaking. His blue skin had turned pale gray from stress, and his large eyes darted between the incoming reports. The old Altarian had seen many wars in his 300 years of life, but nothing like this. The Vexhai were not just conquering planets, they were erasing them completely. 47 systems lost in 3 standard cycles, announced General Nixara from her position at the military console. The insectoid warrior's mandibles clicked together in anger as she read the numbers. 12 billion refugees scattered across our remaining territories. Our combined fleets are down to 30% of original strength. The other council members spoke all at once. The fish-like Aquarians made gurgling sounds of fear, while the crystal beings from Shard Prime hummed in worried frequencies. The plant people from Verdes swayed their branches like trees in a storm. Everyone was scared and no one had answers. Quan Ho remained quiet in his chair. He had been the Terran representative for 20 years, but Earth had gone silent 50 years ago. The last message from his homeworld was simple and strange. Going dark for a while. Don't wait up. Most species thought humans were dead or had run away to hide in some distant corner of the galaxy. Quan Ho kept coming to the meetings anyway because someone had to hold the seat. The Vexhai technology adapts to everything we throw at them, continued General Nixara. Her 4 eyes focused on the tactical displays showing their failed battles. They learn from each engagement. Our weapons become useless after the first fight. Their biomechanical ships evolve faster than we can develop new strategies. Prime Veltaran raised 2 of his arms for silence. What are our options, General? Can we evacuate the core worlds? How much time do we have before they reach Nexus? Prime? The General's antennae twitched with nervousness. At their current rate of advance, we have maybe 6 months. Maybe less if they decide to move faster. Our evacuation ships can carry perhaps 10% of the core world populations. The rest. She did not finish the sentence. Quan Ho had heard this same conversation every day for weeks. The council would panic and make plans and argue about who was to blame. Nothing ever changed. The Vexhai kept coming and the galaxy kept losing. He wondered sometimes if he should just stop coming to these meetings. What was the point of representing? A dead species? What about diplomatic contact? Asked Ambassador Threx from the Spiral Worlds. His tentacles writhed with hope. Have we tried negotiating with them, offering them territory or resources? They do not respond to any communication attempts, replied General Nixara. Every ship we send to parley gets destroyed without warning. The few survivors report that the Vexhai seem to view all other life as inferior. They want complete dominance or total extinction of everything else. The chamber fell silent except for the continued alarm sounds. Quan Ho looked around at the faces of the council members. These were the leaders of dozens of civilized species that had built the greatest alliance in galactic history. They had ended wars and created peace across thousands of worlds. They had solved problems with wisdom and cooperation for centuries. Now they sat in their chairs like children afraid of monsters under the bed. There must be something, whispered Prime Veltaran. Some weapon or strategy we have not considered. Some ally we have not contacted. The hegemony of lost suns refuses to help, said Ambassador Threx. They claim this is not their war. The machine collectives have shut down all communication. The far-reach species are too distant to matter. We have asked everyone. Quan Ho almost spoke up but stopped himself. Who would listen to the representative of a species that had vanished? He had tried many times over the years to explain that humans might return someday. The other council members always nodded politely and changed the subject. In their minds, Earth was a dead world and humans were a footnote in galactic history. The tactical displays updated with new information. Another battle had ended badly for the Allied forces. The 7th Fleet had engaged a small Vexhai task force near the border worlds and lost 80% of their ships. The survivors reported that the enemy vessels had adapted to their weapons. within minutes of the first exchange. Plasma cannons became useless when the Vex-High ships grew new armor plating. Kinetic rounds were deflected by energy shields that appeared instantly. Even ramming attacks failed when the enemy hulls became soft and absorbed the impact. "They learn too fast," muttered General Nixara. "By the time we realize what works, they have already changed to counter it. It is like fighting an enemy that can see the future." More reports came in from the outer sectors. Refugee ships arrived with stories of entire planets being harvested. The Vex-High did not just kill populations. They took everything: biomass, minerals, water, energy. They left behind empty rocks, floating in space with no atmosphere and no life. Some refugees claimed the enemy ships grew larger after consuming worlds as if they fed on the destruction. Prime. Velteran called for an emergency vote on the evacuation protocols. The council members pressed buttons on their chairs to cast their decisions. Red lights appeared on most seats. They had approved the beginning of the end. In 6 months, they would start moving populations away from the core worlds and abandon thousands of years of civilization. "Perhaps it is for the best," said Ambassador Threx quietly. "Better to preserve some life than lose everything to these monsters." Quan Ho felt anger rising in his chest. These people were giving up. They had faced their first real threat in generations, and their response was to run away. He thought about Earth and wondered if his people had faced something similar. Maybe that was why they had gone dark. Maybe they had met their own monsters and lost. The emergency session was ending when the sensor alerts changed tone. Instead of the steady alarm bells, a new sound filled the chamber. Long-range detection systems had found something approaching from the direction of the Sol system. The displays showed massive energy signatures moving faster than anything in. "The galactic databases. How many ships?" asked General Nixara as she studied the readings. "Unknown," replied the sensor technician. "The energy patterns are unlike anything we have on record. They appear to be moving in formation, but their technology is completely unrecognizable." Prime Veltaran looked directly at Quan Ho for the first time in years. "Ambassador, do you know anything about this? Could these be ships from Earth?" Quan Ho stared at the display screens, showing the approaching energy signatures. His heart began beating faster as hope and fear mixed together in his mind. After 50 years of silence, something was coming from the direction of his homeworld. Something big and powerful and completely unknown to the rest of the galaxy. "I do not know," he said honestly. "Earth went silent before I was born. If these are human ships, they are nothing like the ones in our historical records." The approaching fleet was still days away, but the energy readings were already causing concern among the military analysts. The ships were large and numerous, but their power signatures suggested technology that pushed the boundaries of galactic science. Whatever was coming had been built by people who understood warfare in ways the current galaxy had forgotten. "General," Nixara turned to her staff officers. "Send a standard greeting message on all frequencies. If these are potential allies, we need to make contact immediately. If they are another threat—" She did not finish the thought, but her hand moved to her weapon controls. As the council session ended and the members filed out of the chamber, Quan Ho remained in his seat. He stared at the tactical displays showing the mysterious fleet approaching from Earth's direction. Part of him hoped these were his people returning to help save the galaxy. Another part worried about what kind of humans would emerge from 50 years of total silence. The Vex-High had taught the galaxy that there were worse things than war. Soon they might learn that there were also worse things than peace. Whatever was coming from the Sol system had been forged in darkness and silence, while the rest of the galaxy lived in the light. Quan Ho wondered if salvation and damnation might arrive wearing the same face. Captain Li Da-un stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance and watched the alien star systems grow larger on her screens. Her ship groaned around her like a wounded animal that refused to die. 40 years of constant warfare had left its mark on every surface. Hull plates were welded over blast holes. Cables ran along the ceiling where the original systems had been ripped out and replaced with salvage technology. The air recyclers made grinding sounds that meant they needed replacement parts that no longer existed. Behind her stretched the Terran Liberation Fleet, 200 ships that looked like they had been dragged through hell and assembled from the wreckage. Each vessel told the same story of survival and adaptation. Weapons that had been stolen from dead enemies, engines that burned fuel no human engineer had designed, armor plating made from materials that did not exist in any galactic database. Long-range sensors are picking up the alien fleet formations, reported Lieutenant Choi Min-ho from his station. The young officer had been born on a refugee ship and had never seen Earth. His entire life had been spent running from one battle to the next. They appear to be retreating from something called the Vexhai Empire. Da-un nodded without turning around. She had read the intelligence reports about the current Galactic War, another species of conquerors trying to wipe out everything else. It was a familiar story. The galaxy seemed to produce monsters on a regular schedule. Admiral Park Taemin entered the bridge with his usual heavy footsteps. His left arm had been lost in the Battle of Titan 15 years ago, and the mechanical replacement moved with sharp clicking sounds. His face carried scars from a dozen different battles, and his eyes held the tired look of someone who had seen too much death. "Status report, Captain," he said as he took his position at the command center. "We are 4 hours from the alien council station," replied Da-un. "Our ships are running at optimal efficiency given their condition. Engineering reports that we have enough fuel and ammunition for extended operations." Chief Engineer Kim Bo-ra spoke up from her console. "Define extended, Admiral. Our dark matter converters are holding together with prayer and spare parts. The weapon systems are jury-rigged from 6 different alien technologies. We can fight, but I cannot promise how long anything will keep working." The Admiral smiled grimly. "We have been fighting on borrowed time for decades, Engineer. A few more battles will not change anything." Dae-yun thought back to the beginning of the war, when she had been a young ensign on her first assignment. Earth had been a peaceful world then. Humans had just joined the galactic community and were eager to learn from older civilizations. The ships had been clean and new, with bright white hulls and crews who believed in exploration and discovery. Then, the Devourers had arrived. No one knew where they came from or what they wanted. They had appeared at the edge of the solar system in ships that looked like living creatures. Their first message was simple: "Your species will be consumed. Resistance will only delay the inevitable." The war that followed had lasted 50 years. Earth fell in the first month. Luna Base held out for 6 months before being overrun. Mars became a fortress world that changed hands 17 times. The outer colonies were abandoned or destroyed. Humanity fought a running battle through the asteroid belt and then into deep space. The Devourers had been perfect killers. Their technology adapted to human weapons faster than new ones could be developed. Their ships regenerated damage and grew stronger with each battle. They hunted humans across the galaxy like predators chasing wounded prey. But humans had learned to be predators too. "Remember the first rule of human warfare," Admiral Park had told his officers many times. "If the enemy adapts to your weapons, steal their weapons. If they learn your tactics, teach them false ones. If they hunt you, become something worse than they are." The fleet had become pirates and scavengers. They raided alien shipping for supplies and technology. They studied captured Devourer equipment and turned it against its makers. They made alliances with other species who were fighting similar wars. Most importantly, they learned that the galaxy was full of things much more dangerous than any single enemy. "Admiral, we are receiving communication attempts from the alien." "Station," reported Lieutenant Choi. "They are using standard galactic frequencies and protocols." "Put them through," ordered Admiral Park. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of what looked like a government building. Alien faces stared out at them with expressions of hope and fear. A blue-skinned creature with 6 arms appeared to be their leader. "Unknown vessels, this is Council Prime Veltaran of the Galactic Council. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." Admiral Park stepped forward so the aliens could see him clearly. His scarred face and mechanical arm were visible in the transmitted image. "This is Admiral Park Taemin of the Terran Liberation Fleet. We received word that you have a pest problem. We are here to help." The aliens looked confused and frightened. Da-un understood their reaction. Humans no longer looked like the peaceful explorers who had left Earth decades ago. Constant warfare had changed them into something harder and more dangerous. "Terran," asked the blue alien. "You mean human?" "But Earth went silent 50 years ago. We assumed your species was extinct. We got busy," replied the Admiral without emotion. The galaxy is a dangerous place. We learned to adapt. Chief Engineer Kim spoke quietly to Da-un. Look at their ships, Captain. Clean hulls and matching designs. These people have been playing at war while we were learning how to survive it. Da-un studied the alien fleet formations on her tactical display. The ships looked like parade vessels compared to the human fleet. Pretty and symmetrical with weapons that followed established design principles. They were the kind of ships built by people who expected to follow rules and fight honorable battles. Admiral, said Lieutenant Choi, I am reading massive energy, signatures approaching from the opposite direction. These must be the Vex-High ships the aliens mentioned. The screen split to show long-range sensor data. The approaching enemy fleet was impressive in size and coordination. Hundreds of biomechanical vessels moving in perfect formation with power readings that suggested advanced technology. Da-un had seen similar displays many times during the war with the Devourers. They adapt to conventional tactics, observed Admiral Park as he studied the enemy formations. Biomechanical technology that learns and evolves during combat. Standard. Galactic response would be to engage at maximum range with coordinated fleet actions. Which is why they keep losing, added Chief Engineer Kim. These aliens are fighting the last war instead of this one. The communication channel was still open, and the blue alien leader was speaking again. Admiral Park, we would welcome any assistance you can provide. Our forces have suffered terrible losses against the Vex-High adaptive technology. Perhaps your ships could reinforce our defensive positions. Admiral Park exchanged glances with Da-un and the other officers. She could see the dark humor in their eyes. The aliens wanted them to charge directly into a battle that could not be won with conventional tactics. It was exactly the kind of mistake that had cost humanity Earth and nearly led to their extinction. Negative Council Prime, replied the Admiral. We will handle this situation using our own methods. I suggest you withdraw your forces to a safe distance and let us work. But, Admiral, we must coordinate our efforts. Military doctrine requires... Your military doctrine is why you are losing, interrupted Admiral Park. We stopped following doctrine when doctrine stopped working. Stand by for demonstration. The Admiral cut the communication link and turned to his officers. Signal the fleet. All ships move to Phase 1 positions. Activate stealth systems and prepare for irregular warfare protocols. Da-un felt the familiar tension that came before battle. But this was different from their fights with the Devourers. This time they were not running or hiding or trying to survive another day. This time they were hunting. Engineering reports all stealth systems active, announced Kim Bo-ra. The alien sensors will lose us in approximately 30 seconds. Weapons status? Asked the Admiral. All systems charged and ready, replied Lieutenant Choi. Kinetic penetrators loaded. Plasma charges armed. Viral warfare packages prepared for deployment. The human fleet began to scatter and disappear from the alien sensors. Each ship moved independently toward predetermined positions that would allow them to attack the Vex-High from unexpected angles. They had learned this tactic fighting the Devourers. Never attack where the enemy expects. Never fight the battle they want to fight. Admiral, said Da-un quietly, the aliens are going to be shocked by our methods. Good, replied Admiral Park. Fear keeps allies honest. Besides, they asked for help. They did not ask for help they could understand or approve of. The Vex-High fleet continued its approach toward the alien defensive positions. Their biomechanical ships moved with the confidence of predators that had never met anything more dangerous than themselves. Da-un watched their formations and recognized the arrogance of a species that had won too many easy victories. All ships report ready, announced Lieutenant Choi. Admiral Park studied the tactical display one more time. The enemy was positioned exactly where human intelligence had predicted. The meeting room on Nexus Prime had been designed for peaceful negotiations between civilized species. Soft lighting created a calming atmosphere, while the curved walls and comfortable seating encouraged diplomatic cooperation. The air recycling system pumped in scents that were supposed to reduce stress and promote rational thinking. None of it worked when the humans walked in. Colonel Yoon Jae-sung entered first with the smooth movements of someone trained to kill quickly and quietly. His black uniform carried no decorations or rank insignia, but the way other humans deferred to him made his authority clear. Behind him came Dr. Han Yu-jin, whose lab coat could not hide the weapon harnesses underneath. Sergeant Major Oh Kyung-mi, brought up the rear, and her augmented limbs moved with mechanical precision that made clicking sounds when she walked. Ambassador Quan Ho watched the alien council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. The humans looked wrong somehow. Too alert, too ready for violence. Their eyes constantly scanned for threats and escape routes. Even in a peaceful meeting room, they acted like soldiers in enemy territory. "Thank you for coming," said Council. Prime Veltaran, with forced politeness. "We hope to coordinate our efforts against the Vex-High threat." Colonel Yun sat down without waiting for permission. "Coordination implies equal partnership. You called for help. We came. That makes this a consultation, not a coordination." The bluntness of his statement caused several council members to exchange worried glances. Dr. Han pulled out a datapad and began studying the tactical information they had been provided. Sergeant Major O remained standing behind the seated, humans like a bodyguard ready for action. "Perhaps we should begin with a situation briefing," suggested General Nix Era. "Our intelligence indicates that the Vex-High adaptive technology learns from each engagement. They modify their ships and weapons during battle to counter whatever tactics we employ." "Adaptive technology," repeated Dr. Han without looking up, from her datapad. "Biomechanical integration with artificial intelligence, self-modifying code that evolves in real time. Interesting but not unique." "Not unique?" asked General Nixara with surprise. "We have never encountered anything like it before." "You have been fighting civilized wars," replied Colonel Yun. "The Devourers used similar technology, worse actually. Their ships could regenerate from complete destruction, and their AI could predict tactics before we used them." Ambassador Quan Ho leaned forward with interest. This was the first time any human had spoken about their 50-year absence. "What happened to the Devourers, Colonel? How did you defeat technology like that?" "We did not defeat them," said Dr. Han flatly. "We exterminated them. Every ship, every base, every trace of their civilization. When something threatens human survival, we do not seek victory. We seek extinction of the threat." The silence that followed was broken only by the clicking sounds from Sergeant Major O's augmented limbs. The alien council members stared at the humans with expressions of shock and growing fear. These were not the peaceful explorers who had joined the galactic community decades ago. "Extermination seems extreme," said Prime Veltaran carefully. "The Galactic Council believes in proportional response and preservation of life whenever possible." Colonel Yun laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Proportional response. You mean fighting fair, following rules, showing mercy to enemies, who show none to you." He stood up and walked to the tactical display showing Vex-High fleet positions. "How is that strategy working out for you?" "We have lost significant territory," admitted General Nixara. "But we maintain our principles. Civilized species do not resort to genocide," interrupted Dr. Han. "Mass warfare, biological weapons, psychological operations, total destruction of enemy infrastructure." She finally looked up from her datapad with cold eyes. "What exactly do you think civilization means when your entire species faces extinction?" Sergeant Major O spoke for the first time in a voice that sounded partially mechanical. "Civilization is a luxury for people who have never been hunted to the edge of existence. When survival is at stake, you do whatever works. Ethics are for species that have time to worry about ethics." Ambassador Quan Ho felt a chill as he listened to his own people speak. They sounded like survivors of something terrible that had changed them at a fundamental level. "What are you proposing, Colonel? What methods do you want to use against the Vex-High?" Colonel Yun returned to his seat and pulled out his own datapad. "Three-phase strategy. First, we infiltrate their networks and corrupt their adaptive systems. Make their technology work against them instead of for them. Second, we target their infrastructure and supply lines. No glorious fleet battles. We hit power plants and factories and shipping routes. Third, we eliminate their leadership and break their will to fight." "That sounds like terrorism," said Council. "Prime Veltaran with horror." "It is terrorism," agreed Dr. Han. "Along with sabotage and assassination and biological warfare and anything else that produces results. We learned from the Devourers that there is no such thing as fighting clean when the stakes are species survival." General Nixara studied her tactical displays with a troubled expression. Even if we agreed to such methods, we lack the technology for network infiltration. The Vex-High systems are completely alien to us. Not to us, said Dr. Han, with something that might have been a smile. We have been stealing and reverse engineering alien technology for 50 years. Their adaptive AI is actually quite similar to what the Devourers used. I can have infiltration programs ready within days. What about casualties? Asked Ambassador Threx. How many Vex-High civilians would die in these attacks? The three humans looked at each other, and something passed between them that made Ambassador Quan Ho deeply uncomfortable. It was the look of people who had made terrible decisions and learned to live with the consequences. All of them, said Colonel Yun simply. The Vex-High view other species as inferior and mark them for extinction. We will return the favor. No negotiations, no surrender, no survivors. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices as the alien members spoke over each other in their various languages. Prime Veltaran pounded his gavel for order, while General Nixara tried to explain why such methods were unacceptable under galactic law. Sergeant Major O stepped forward, and the room fell silent. Her augmented body made soft whirring sounds as internal systems adjusted to her emotional state. You want to know the difference between us and you? You fight to preserve your civilization. We fight because our civilization already ended. There is a difference. What do you mean ended? Asked Ambassador Quan Ho quietly. Earth is gone, replied Dr. Han. Not conquered, not occupied, gone. The Devourers sterilized the entire surface and harvested the biomass. What you see here are the survivors of a dead world fighting with technology stolen from our killers. Then where do you live now? Asked Prime Veltaran. Wherever we can, said Colonel Yun. Asteroid bases, space stations, ships that never dock anywhere. We have been nomads for decades, moving from battle to battle and learning to survive in the dark between stars. The weight of their words settled over the council chamber like a heavy blanket. These humans were not representatives of a civilization. They were the ghosts of one. They had been forced to become something else entirely in order to survive. The question before you is simple, continued Colonel Yun. Do you want to win this war, or do you want to feel good about how you fight it? Because you cannot have both. General Nixara spoke carefully. If we approve these methods, what guarantee do we have that you will stop with the Vex-High? How do we know you will not turn on us when the threat is eliminated? You do not, said Dr. Han bluntly. But you called for help, and we answered. If you prefer to lose honorably rather than win dishonorably, we can leave. The galaxy has other enemies who might provide better challenges. The threat was delivered so casually that it took several seconds for the council members to understand what had been said. These humans were offering to save them or destroy them with equal indifference. They had become something beyond good and evil. Ambassador Quan Ho looked around the room at the faces of the council members. Fear and desperation warred with principles and traditions that had guided galactic civilization for centuries. The POW. Vex-High had already proven that conventional methods would not work. The humans were offering an alternative that might save billions of lives at the cost of everything the Council claimed to believe in. We need time to consider your proposals, said Prime Veltaran finally. No, said Colonel Yun as he stood to leave. You need time to accept them. The war is already starting whether you approve or not. We did not come here to ask permission. We came to inform you of what is going to happen. The three humans walked toward the door with the same predatory grace they had shown when entering. At the threshold, Colonel Yun turned back to face the council one last time. Your species developed ethics and laws and civilized behavior because you had the luxury of safety. You built a society that could afford to be moral, but the universe does not care about your morality. It only cares about who survives. We learned that lesson the hard way. Now you get to decide if you want to learn it the easy way or repeat our experience. After the humans left the council, Chamber remained silent for long minutes. Commander Nam Hyajin floated in the pilot's seat of her stealth ship as it drifted through the Vex-High supply corridor. The vessel looked like a piece of space debris from the outside, but contained technology that had cost thousands of human lives to develop. She watched her sensors track the enemy convoy moving through the shipping lane with mechanical precision. Target acquired, she whispered into her communication system. Industrial transport with biomechanical escort vessels. Estimated cargo includes rare metals and processing equipment. The response came from Captain Lim Dongwu aboard the Ghost Protocol. Confirmed, Hye-jin. We have similar targets on 3 other vectors. The Vex-High are moving massive amounts of resources toward their forward bases. Master Chief Bei Sung-ho added his voice from the boarding ship Retribution. Perfect opportunity for Phase 1 operations. These supply runs follow predictable schedules and routes. They expect their adaptive technology to handle any direct threats. Commander Nam smiled grimly as she studied the enemy formation. The Vex-High had been winning battles for so long that they had become careless about protecting their logistics. Their biomechanical ships could adapt to any weapons they encountered, but adaptation required time and direct engagement. Human. Stealth technology gave them neither. All units execute on my mark, she commanded. Remember the doctrine? We are not here to fight their ships. We are here to teach them that nowhere is safe. The human stealth ships moved like ghosts through the darkness between stars. Each vessel carried weapons and technology that defied galactic conventions about fair warfare. Viral programs designed to corrupt artificial intelligence. Kinetic. Penetrators that could punch through any armor. Biological agents that attacked biomechanical systems at the cellular level. Mark, said Commander Nam. The first phase of the attack targeted the communication arrays on the escort vessels. Silent laser bursts, severed antenna arrays, and sensor clusters without triggering defensive systems. The Vex-High ships continued, moving, but they were now blind and deaf to threats approaching from unexpected angles. Phase 2 struck the transport ships with pinpoint precision. Instead of attacking the heavily armored sections, the humans targeted life support systems and navigation equipment. Small explosions disabled engines and power plants, while leaving the cargo holds intact. The convoy found itself drifting helplessly in space with no way to call for help. "Boarding parties launch," ordered Master Chief Bei from his position aboard the Retribution. The final phase was the most dangerous. Human soldiers in powered armor launched themselves across the void toward the disabled Vex-High ships. They carried weapons designed specifically for close combat against biomechanical enemies. Plasma cutters that could slice through living metal, acid charges that dissolved organic armor, neural disruptors that fried artificial intelligence systems. Commander Nam watched the boarding action through her tactical display. The Vex-High crew fought desperately, but they had never faced enemies who understood their technology so completely. Human weapons targeted the connection points between biological and mechanical systems. They exploited weaknesses that the adaptive AI could not compensate for quickly enough. "Transport secured," reported Master Chief Bei. "Cargo includes industrial fabricators and rare element processors. Intelligence value is significant." "Copy that, Chief," replied Commander Nam. "Download everything and prepare for extraction. We have 12 minutes before their patrol schedule brings reinforcements." This was the new reality of human warfare. No glorious fleet battles. No honorable single combat between matched opponents. Just small groups of humans striking from darkness and vanishing before the enemy could respond. They fought like predators hunting prey that had grown too comfortable with being apex predators. Dr. Han Yu-jin monitored the entire operation from her laboratory aboard the command ship. She watched data streams from dozens of similar attacks, happening across Vex-High territory. Her viral programs were spreading through their networks like digital cancer. Each successful infiltration gave her more information about their adaptive systems. "Phase 1 is proceeding ahead of schedule," she reported to Admiral Park. "The Vex-High are losing approximately 30% of their supply shipments. More importantly, their AI systems are beginning to develop cascade failures from viral contamination." "Explain the cascade failures," requested the Admiral. "Their adaptive technology learns by analyzing successful attacks and developing countermeasures. My viruses feed false information into that learning process. The AI thinks it is adapting to defend against kinetic weapons when the real attacks use energy beams. It prepares for fleet engagements when we strike with single ships. The system is becoming more vulnerable instead of more protected." This was the genius of human strategy. They had learned from 50 years of fighting adaptive enemies that the key was not to defeat the adaptation but to corrupt it. Make the enemy technology work against itself. Turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Captain Lim Dongwu led the second wave of attacks against Vex-High infrastructure. His ship, the Ghost Protocol, looked like it had been built from spare parts and desperation. The hull carried patches from a dozen different alien technologies. The weapon systems combined human innovation with stolen enemy equipment. It was ugly and jury-rigged and absolutely deadly. Target is a power generation facility on the third moon of their industrial system, he reported to the Fleet Command. Intelligence suggests it supplies energy to their shipbuilding operations. Rules of engagement, Captain? Asked his weapons officer. Complete destruction, replied Captain Lim without hesitation. No survivors, no salvage, no mercy. The Ghost Protocol approached the target using a trajectory that exploited the gravity wells of 3 different celestial bodies. Vex-High sensors detected them only when they were already within attack range. By then, it was too late for the adaptive technology to develop effective countermeasures. The human attack was swift and brutal. Instead of engaging the defensive systems, they targeted the power plant's reactor core with weapons specifically designed to cause catastrophic failures. The resulting explosion sterilized the entire moon and left the Vex-High shipyards without power for their manufacturing operations. Similar attacks were happening throughout Vex-High space. Humans struck mining operations and research facilities and command centers. They targeted anything that supported the enemy war effort. Most importantly, they made sure that no one survived to report exactly how the attacks had been carried out. The enemy is beginning to adapt their tactics, observed General Nixara during a briefing with the human commanders. They are increasing security around their supply convoys and industrial targets. Good, replied Colonel Yun. Fear makes enemies predictable. When they start defending everything, they defend nothing effectively. But surely they will learn to counter your methods eventually, suggested Ambassador Quan Ho. Their adaptive technology has to evolve beyond your current capabilities. Dr. Han smiled with cold humor. Let me show you something, Ambassador. She activated a holographic display showing the progression of Vex-High defensive measures over the past weeks. Each adaptation to human tactics created new vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Stronger armor meant slower ships. Better sensors required more power that could be targeted. Improved AI systems were more susceptible to viral corruption. They are adapting exactly as we want them to adapt, explained Dr. Han. Every change they make moves them further away from the balanced systems that made them effective. They are becoming specialized to fight humans, which means they are becoming vulnerable to everything else. This was the true art of human warfare. Not just defeating enemies, but reshaping them into something that could be defeated more easily. The Vex-High were learning to fight ghosts and terrorists and saboteurs when their original strength had been overwhelming conventional fleets. Master Chief Bei led the most dangerous operations deep into enemy territory. His teams of enhanced soldiers struck at targets that the Vex-High thought were completely secure. Command ships in the middle of battle fleets, research facilities hidden in remote systems, even the leadership centers where Vex-High commanders planned their strategies. Boarding the enemy command vessel, he reported during one particularly risky mission. Resistance is heavy but not coordinated. Their security systems are designed to repel conventional attacks. What about their adaptive defenses? Asked Admiral Park. Useless against close combat, replied Master Chief Bei as his team fought through the ship's corridors. Adaptation requires time to analyze threats and develop responses. We do not give them time. The human soldiers moved through the Vex-High ship like natural disasters. They had been fighting biomechanical enemies for decades and knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage. Plasma charges severed neural connections between ship sections. Acid weapons dissolved the organic components that held the vessel together. Most importantly, they captured or destroyed every piece of intelligence they could find. Command center secured, reported Master Chief Bei. Downloading their tactical databases and communication logs. The intelligence value here is enormous. Within hours, the captured information was being analyzed by human cryptographers and strategists. The Vex-High fortress station hung in space above their homeworld, like a metal moon. It was massive beyond comprehension, with weapons that could sterilize planets and defenses that had never been breached. The biomechanical structure pulsed with organic life while mechanical systems provided impossible levels of protection. For 300 years, it had been the symbol of Vex-High power and the guarantee of their species' survival. Admiral Park Taemin studied the tactical displays showing the enemy stronghold. His officers had been running calculations for weeks trying to find a weakness in the station's defenses. Every simulation ended the same way. Even the entire human fleet working together could not penetrate the fortress shields or overcome its adaptive weapon systems. "Admiral, the Galactic Council is requesting another strategy briefing," reported Lieutenant Choi Min-ho. "They want to know our plans for the final assault." "Tell them we are still developing options," replied Admiral Park. "Some strategies require careful preparation." Captain Lee Da-yoon entered the briefing room with Chief Engineer Kim Bo-ra and several other senior officers. They had been working around the clock to solve what appeared to be an impossible problem. The Vex-High had concentrated their remaining forces around their homeworld in a defensive formation that conventional tactics could not break. "Status report, Captain," ordered the Admiral. "Engineering has completed the modifications to our dark matter systems," replied Da-yoon. "The captured Vex-High technology integrates with our power plants better than expected. We can generate approximately 3 times our normal energy output for short periods." "What about the gravitational calculations?" asked Admiral Park. "Chief." Engineer Kim stepped forward with her usual confidence. "The math works, Admiral. Barely. We can destabilize the orbital mechanics of their moon using focused dark matter pulses. The resulting gravitational chaos will give us approximately 6 hours before the debris field reaches the planet's surface. 6 hours to evacuate an entire world," observed Lieutenant Choi. "Even with their advanced transportation technology, that seems impossible." "That is the point," said Admiral Park grimly. "We are not giving them time to evacuate. We are giving them time to surrender." The strategy was brutal in its simplicity. Instead of attacking the impregnable fortress, the humans would destroy the planet it was built to protect. The Vex-High could watch their homeworld die unless they agreed to unconditional surrender. It was the kind of warfare that made even hardened human soldiers uncomfortable. Dr. Han Yu-jin joined the briefing through a communication link from her laboratory. "Admiral, I have completed the final viral package for their command systems. If they refuse to surrender, we can ensure that their weapons cannot target our ships during the operation." "What about casualties, Dr. Han?" asked Captain Da-eun. "Total," replied the scientist without emotion. "The gravitational disruption will tear their atmosphere away and break the planetary crust into fragments. Nothing larger than an asteroid will remain. Estimated death toll is approximately 40 billion Vex-High civilians." The silence that followed was broken only by the humming of ship systems and the distant sounds of crew members going about their duties. Even for humans who had learned to fight without mercy, the scale of destruction they were contemplating was staggering. "There has to be another way," said Lieutenant Choi quietly. "Some alternative that does not require genocide." Admiral Park turned to face his young officer with tired eyes. "Lieutenant, do you remember what the Vex-High did to the Helix Coalition worlds? Or the industrial centers of the Rim Alliance? Or the refugee ships from the border systems?" "They showed no mercy, Admiral," replied Lieutenant Choi. "But that does not mean we should become like them?" "We became like them 50 years ago," said Chief Engineer Kim, "when the Devourers burned Earth and hunted us across the galaxy. When we learned that the universe rewards strength and punishes weakness. When we discovered that survival requires doing things that civilized people find unacceptable." Captain Da-yoon studied the tactical displays showing Vex-High fleet positions. "Admiral, what if they call our bluff? What if they believe we will not actually destroy their homeworld?" "Then 40 billion people die because their leaders made the wrong choice," replied Admiral Park. "We learned long ago that making empty threats is worse than making no threats at all." The human fleet began moving into position around the Vex-High system. Each ship carried weapons and equipment that represented decades of stolen technology and desperate innovation. They looked like pirates and scavengers compared to the sleek enemy vessels, but appearances could be deceiving. These ships had survived battles that destroyed entire civilizations. "All units report ready for Operation Damocles," announced Commander Nam Hye-jin from her stealth ship. "Dark matter generators are synchronized, and target coordinates have been confirmed. Communication systems are prepared to broadcast our terms," added Captain Lim Dong-woo. All Vex High frequencies will receive the message simultaneously. Master Chief Bei Sung-ho spoke from his boarding ship. Assault teams are standing by in case they choose to fight instead of surrender. We can take their command structure even inside that fortress. Admiral Park took a deep breath and activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Park. In 5 minutes, we will transmit our ultimatum to the Vex High leadership. After that, we wait exactly 1 hour for their response. If they refuse to surrender, we proceed with planetary destruction. No hesitation. No mercy. No second chances. The message went out on all frequencies in the universal trade language that every spacefaring species understood. This is Admiral Park Tae-min of the Terran Liberation Fleet speaking to the Vex High Command. Your empire is defeated, your fleets are scattered, your territory is in rebellion, you have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally or watch your homeworld die. You call yourselves an advanced species, but you have proven to be nothing more than parasites that consume other civilizations. You offered no mercy to the worlds you conquered. You showed no compassion to the refugees you created. You gave no quarter to the fleets that tried to stop you. We are returning the favor. Surrender now and your people will be relocated to suitable worlds where they can build a new civilization under galactic supervision. Refuse and your species ends today. The choice is yours. The transmission ended and the human fleet waited in formation around the system. Every ship maintained perfect position while their crews prepared for either massive destruction or complicated prisoner operations. They had learned to be ready for anything. Vex High Command is requesting clarification of our terms, reported Lieutenant Choi. They want to know what guarantees we can provide for their safety. Tell them we guarantee nothing except that refusing to surrender means extinction, replied Admiral Park. They can trust our mercy or test our resolve. Those are their only options. Ambassador Kwon Ho watched the proceedings from his observation post aboard the flagship. Part of him was horrified by what his people had become. Another part was grimly proud that humanity had survived when so many other species had fallen. They were monsters now, but they were effective monsters. Admiral, we are receiving multiple communications from the Galactic Council, reported the communication officer. They are demanding that we abort this operation and seek a negotiated solution. Inform the Council that negotiations ended when the Vex High chose conquest over coexistence, replied Admiral Park. They had decades to find diplomatic solutions. This is what military solutions look like. The hour passed slowly as both fleets waited in tense formation. Vex High ships maintained their defensive positions around the fortress station, while human vessels prepared to commit an act of destruction that would be remembered for thousands of years, either as the day a species was saved through surrender or the day 40 billion people died because their leaders chose pride over survival. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Vex High Command, announced Lieutenant Choi with obvious relief. They are requesting terms for conditional surrender. No conditions, replied Admiral Park immediately. Complete surrender or complete extinction. Make them choose. The response came back within minutes. The Vex High leadership agreed to unconditional surrender. Their fleets would power down weapons and await human boarding parties. Their territories would be evacuated and populations relocated. Their technology would be surrendered for study and destruction. Their civilization would end, but their species would survive. All ships stand down from attack positions, ordered Admiral Park. Begin prisoner operations and territorial occupation. The war is over. Captain Da-un felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness as the fleet began moving toward the surrendering enemy vessels. After 50 years of constant warfare, the humans had finally won a complete victory. They had saved the galaxy and avenged Earth and proven that survival was possible even against impossible odds. What happens now, Admiral? Asked Lieutenant Choi as he watched Vex High ships powering down their weapons. Now we go home, replied Admiral Park, wherever that is. The Galactic Council meeting that followed was unlike any in their recorded history. The humans sat at one end of the chamber, while representatives from dozens of grateful species offered praise and thanks for their salvation.